By day, they barely looked at her, a blur in a gray uniform pushing a cart down the polished marble halls of power. To them, she was invisible, another quiet shadow in their empire of noise. But at night, when the lights dimmed and the suits disappeared, she became something else. With a stolen laptop, a cracked password, and a mind they underestimated, Eva Coleman slipped into their digital vaults and uncovered secrets worth billions. She wasn't just cleaning up trash, she was cleaning out corruption. And the billionaires never saw it coming. Eva had mastered the art of being invisible. In the 12-story skyscraper where the Atlas Group ran its global operations, she glided between glass walls and security cameras like a ghost. She knew which executives stayed late, which ones locked their screens, and which ones didn't. It was always the arrogant ones, the ones who thought no one would ever dare, that left their laptops open, their emails running, and their sins on full display. Every evening at 7 p.m., Eva clocked in wearing her janitorial badge, worn and faded. She walked into a world built on polished lies, where marble floors covered blood money, and every inch of glass reflected power. But none of them knew who she really was. None of them knew she once sat at the top of her law class at Georgetown. None of them knew that she used to walk courtrooms with confidence, and that her name once echoed in legal circles before she was ruined by the very machine she now swept underfoot. She didn't become a janitor by choice. Atlas had made sure of that. 6 years ago, they silenced her. Franklin Rowe, the golden-faced billionaire behind Atlas, had stolen an invention her late father patented. She took them to court. They buried her in litigation, blacklisted her, and when her savings dried up, the only work left was the one job that brought her back into their building, armed with a mop, but fueled by vengeance. Every day, Eva observed. She memorized key codes, watched the elevator logs, noted which executives took calls behind closed doors and which ones left USBs on their desks. She built a digital map in her mind, piece by piece, and then one night, she made her first move. It started with an email draft. On the 32nd floor, while wiping fingerprints off a sleek desk, she noticed an open laptop. The executive had gone to the restroom, and the screen was unlocked. She sat for exactly 15 seconds, copied an entire email thread about offshore accounts to her drive, and walked out. No one noticed. No one ever did. From there, it escalated. She didn't just steal information. She analyzed it. She traced bribes through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, found ties between Atlas Group and foreign regimes, connected dots between land seizures and fabricated humanitarian projects. She wasn't just collecting dirt. She was building a bomb, data so damning it could take down the entire board, but power doesn't go down easy. One night she noticed something off. A new guard on the 35th floor, security badges being updated, a file folder labeled Internal, Threat on an executive screen, her name listed below. They were onto her. But it was too late. Eva had already uploaded a portion of the files to a dead-drop server in Sweden. She had created aliases, used public Wi-Fi from 10 different cafes, disguised her IP with military-grade VPN layers. But more importantly, she had timed it all. In 3 days, at the Atlas Gala, a glittering event for investors, government, allies, and media, she would pull the trigger. And what better stage to expose them than the night they celebrated their dominance? She had a custom badge printed under the alias Elaine Costa. Her fake ID was flawless. The dress she wore to the gala was stolen from a shipment box meant for a client. Tailored, red, powerful. She walked into the ballroom that night like a storm in silk. The billionaires smiled. They didn't know. They shook her hand. They didn't feel the USB drive in her palm. As champagne glasses clinked, she plugged it into the media booth's port. A 5-second lag, a blinking cursor, and then the screens changed. Every wall in the gala lit up. Offshore accounts. Illegally acquired land deeds. confidential emails revealing a journalist's assassination order. The room fell silent, then gasped, then chaos. Security scrambled. Franklin Rose stood frozen, his face lit by the glow of his own betrayal. Eva turned, calm as ever, and walked out through the same doors she had cleaned for 6 years. They never found her, but they found the truth. The night of the gala didn't just shake Atlas. It cracked open a vault of buried crimes that sent tremors through the entire financial world. By morning, headlines screamed of corporate fraud and cover-ups. News anchors stuttered over leaked footage that named presidents, tech moguls, and even global charities as participants in a billion-dollar web of deceit. And while the board members at Atlas scrambled to issue statements, to pay lawyers, to find someone to blame, Eva Coleman vanished without a trace. But she hadn't run. She had planned her disappearance with the same precision as her attack in a hidden basement apartment 2 train rides from the city center. She watched the chaos unfold through multiple news feeds. Her dark eyes flickered with quiet satisfaction as her name was never mentioned. Not once. Her face wasn't on any footage. Her ID badge hadn't scanned through the main doors. Even the USB she used was wiped clean of fingerprints and labeled for promotion materials. She sipped black coffee as the world unraveled, and yet she wasn't finished, because taking down Atlas was only the beginning. The data she'd released to the public was just the surface. The real treasure, the one she'd risked everything for, was still encrypted, still hidden in an air-gapped drive only she could access. It was the master ledger, a record of all internal payouts, backdoor dealings, and a coded index of international operatives tied to Atlas's darker arm. Project Omen. Eva didn't discover it by accident. She had searched for it for years. It was the file her father died protecting. In 2007, Dr. Carl Coleman was a government cybersecurity analyst. He designed a program to detect financial corruption patterns using machine learning before the phrase even meant anything to corporations. Atlas had tried to buy it. He refused. 3 months later, he died in a car crash with his laptop missing. From the wreck, officially ruled an accident, Eva was 21. She never forgot. Project Omen was built using that stolen algorithm. Atlas repurposed it not to stop corruption, but to profit from it. They used it to predict market collapses, political coups, and even humanitarian crises. They didn't just watch the world fall apart. They orchestrated it, bought futures before disasters, sold vaccines before outbreaks. The program made them gods in suits. And Eva had just stolen their divine fire. She opened the hard drive and typed a single command. Unlock Omen. Confirm authority. C. Coleman, Gen 01. The screen flickered. Lines of red text scrolled. She had it. But knowing the truth and surviving it were 2 different things. Eva knew Atlas would never stop looking. Billionaires don't forget humiliation, especially not on live television. Already, international warrants were being drafted. Cyber units from private security firms, retired intelligence, officers paid in diamonds were being assigned to track her down. The world would never hear her name, but they'd feel her every move. Still, she wasn't running. She was recruiting. In the weeks that followed, encrypted messages appeared in obscure code forums. A digital whisper passed among the ethical hacking. Underground. A code name repeated like a myth. Shadow Mop. Only the best understood the reference. Only the boldest responded. Eva assembled a team across 6 time zones. A whistleblower in Brussels, a data broker in Lagos, a fugitive coder living on a boat off Hong Kong. None knew her real name. But they trusted her because she did what no one else had the guts to do, take down Atlas and live. Their mission was clear: dismantle the system from the inside. They didn't want to leak information. They wanted to burn the pipelines, shut down the offshore vaults. Overload trading algorithms, rewire the AI that manipulated elections. It wasn't just cyber warfare, it was insurgency, and Eva was the general, but she had a rule. No one gets hurt, no civilian casualties, no blood, only truth. The deeper they dug, the darker it became. They found evidence of Atlas funding wars in developing countries, launching surveillance satellites masked as weather drones, controlling medical research to delay cures that would hurt pharmaceutical stocks. And worst of all, projected simulations of global economic collapse designed as leverage. Eva knew what she was holding, a digital guillotine. It was power no person should have, so she gave it away, not to one person, but to millions. She created a blockchain-powered leak system, one that couldn't be shut down, one that verified every document with zero editing, one that lived across servers in over 50 countries. She called it the window because it opened a view into the truth no one could deny. When the window launched, the world changed overnight. Governments fell. CEOs resigned mid-flight. Whistleblowers rose like ghosts from exile. New political candidates emerged, riding a wave of restored belief in justice. People began to question, not just authority, but the stories they'd believed for years. And, through it all, Eva remained invisible. The woman in the gray uniform, the ghost in the boardroom, the janitor who outsmarted the billionaires not just once, but forever. Eva knew silence was survival. After the window went live, she vanished again. This time not out of fear, but out of purpose. She returned to the shadows, moving from city to city using dozens of identities. In Berlin, she was a systems engineer, named Lena Hoff. In Buenos Aires, she posed as an ethics professor. In Bangkok, she repaired fiber optic lines in server farms that unknowingly hosted her own encryption nodes. She wasn't hiding. She was seeding herself into the infrastructure of the digital world. But enemies evolved too. Atlas hadn't died. It adapted. It fractured into smaller, more dangerous entities. Ghost Corps, rogue think tanks, unregulated AI labs funded by silent investors. One of them, a shadow tech firm called Silver Halo, emerged as the next front line. On the surface, they were a cybersecurity consultancy for billionaires. Beneath, they were a mercenary data-for-hire syndicate, designed solely to recover or erase traces of the window. Eva's creation had hurt them badly. Silver Halo was built to return the blow. She first encountered their work when her contact, in Morocco, a young data analyst named Karim, disappeared. 2 days later, his entire social existence was wiped. No birth certificate, no passport record, no university degree, like he never existed. But Eva remembered, and she didn't forgive. So she went back on the offensive. She breached Silver Halo's employee logs using a Trojan piggybacked on a donated AI tool they had open-sourced, one she altered with a zero-day exploit. It gave her a 20-minute window into their internal communications. What she found chilled her. Silver Halo was tracking 1,143 digital activists across 27 countries, people like her. People who had shared files through the window, who had contributed to transparency, who now had targets on their backs. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was survival, for all of them. She reached out to her old team, now working under a new digital syndicate known only as Ember. They were the last firewall, the ones who stood between the world's darkest data and the people trying to keep it lit. Together, they devised a plan not just to crash Silver Halo, but to turn it inside out. They infiltrated through phishing, spoofed VPN tunnels, and honey-trapped AI filters. But the prize wasn't their client list or kill switch codes. It was the Black Orchid Protocol, a predictive AI Silver Halo developed to model individual activist behavior and vulnerability. It used data points from smartwatches, personal calendars, delivery orders, even meditation apps. Its sole purpose was to determine when someone would break, not just physically, but ethically. Eva didn't just steal the algorithm, she rewrote it, reprogrammed it to lie, to inflate false leads, to turn Silver Halo's own predictions against them. The AI began flagging their agents as threats. Internal audits turned into purges. Paranoia spread. Their network choked on its own code. It was elegant. It was brutal. It was Eva. But victory had a price. The deeper she reached into these digital empires, the more visible she became. Even with layer after layer of obfuscation, her alias web was weakening. Interpol tagged an unknown operator as the ghost janitor. Rumors circulated of a woman who dismantled billionaires in her spare time. Online forums argued over her identity like urban legend, some calling her a hero, others a terrorist, and then came the offer. It appeared as a text message on a clean device she had never used for ops. "We know who you are, and we want to hire you." No name, no number, just a coordinates ping leading to a private airstrip in the Azores. Eva stared at it for hours. It was either a trap or the biggest opportunity of her life. She went, not because she was reckless, because she was ready on the tarmac. A black drone with no visible engine or ID hovered until she stepped into its radius. Then it scanned her iris and opened its door. Inside, a voice spoke through speakers, not synthetic, but deliberately distorted. "We're not Atlas. We're what comes after, and we need you." They were a collective called the Ledger. Former insiders, whistleblowers, and AI ethicists who had broken ranks with the ultra-elite. They had money, influence, but no way to fight the corruption still pulsing through the arteries of world systems. They didn't want Eva to destroy. They wanted her to rebuild. They offered her something she never expected, a lab of her own, resources. Engineers, anonymity, safety. But more than that, they offered her choice. She said no, at first. But then she thought of Kareem, of the 1,143 names, of her father, and she realized she had started this war to avenge the past. Now she had a chance to shape the future. She said yes. The Ledger's facility was unlike anything Eva had seen, carved into the basalt cliffs of an unmarked island in the North Atlantic, accessible only by encrypted flight paths and surrounded by sensor jammers strong enough to block satellites. Inside, former cybersecurity chiefs, black hat prodigies, AI ethicists, and exiled financial auditors worked side by side. It was a paradox. The most powerful rebel tech lab in the world operated in silence. They weren't just collecting secrets, they were building the mirror, a global data framework designed to expose and correct corruption as it happened. Not after. Not once it was too late. Eva didn't trust them. Not entirely, but she admired the ambition. Her project within the Ledger was called Project Vigil. It would scan digital footprints in real time, isolate power distortions, like manipulated supply, chains, insider trades, or data-influenced policy decisions, and report them anonymously to international watchdogs, media outlets, and civil rights bodies. The catch? It had to be impossible to trace. Not even the Ledger would know where it came from. That was Eva's condition. She didn't want to build another weapon that could be turned on the innocent, but her caution wasn't enough, because someone within the Ledger wasn't who they claimed to be. She noticed it in the logs, tiny inconsistencies in server boot patterns, mirror relays that duplicated once every 36 hours, and silent pings, leaving their local net to an unknown IP block, owned by Obelisk Ventures, a shell firm, one she'd seen before, Franklin Rowe's final alias, the man who ruined her life. Atlas may have shattered, but he was still operating, still watching, and now, it seemed, he had someone inside the Ledger. Eva didn't confront them. She set a trap. She embedded a bait protocol inside Project Vigil, code designed to look like an unpatched exploit, the kind a mole couldn't resist. If accessed, It would ping a ghost server she controlled, recording everything about the breach attempt: location, device, MAC address, and most importantly, identity. The breach came 18 hours later. The mole? Dr. Liana Vex, one of the lead AI ethicists. Harvard-trained, warm smile, glowing credentials, and an entire resume built on carefully constructed fiction. A plant. A spy. But when Eva confronted her, Liana didn't deny it. She just smiled. "You think you're the only one who lost everything?" she said. Eva was stunned. Liana claimed Atlas destroyed her brother's career, bankrupted her family, and then paid her to keep silent. She took the money, but made a different plan. She used her position to spy not just on the ledger, but on Atlas too. She was a double agent. Torn between justice and survival, Eva didn't know if she could trust her, but they had a common enemy, and Roe was planning something massive. Liana had intel Obelisk Ventures was funding a global AI initiative known as Project Sovereign, an autonomous financial decision engine that would control billions in investments, bypassing governments entirely. It used real-time behavioral economics and political risk modeling to manipulate markets, essentially letting a private AI steer the planet's wealth in secret. If launched, it would turn democracy into a shadow play. It was scheduled to go live in 6 days, from a hardened data bunker in Greenland, powered by quantum nodes and guarded by mercenaries flown in from private armies. No one could get in. But Eva had been underestimated before. She didn't plan to go in the front. She planned to burn it down from within. Back at the ledger, she and Liana built a ghost override, code capable of slipping into Sovereign's launch protocol and forcing it into a logic paradox. But it had to be installed physically. There was no other way. Sovereign's firewalls were post-quantum, its AI loops recursive and insulated. Eva prepared for war. She flew under a dead alias, cloaked by Ledger aircraft, to an abandoned weather station just 5 miles from the Greenland facility. The cold bit into her skin like broken glass. From there, she traveled by snowcrawler, camouflaged against thermal drones. Liana stayed behind. She would guide her through the facility's access systems using old satellite blueprints and internal schedules she'd memorized. The plan was simple: infiltrate the service tunnel during the 3-minute maintenance window, reach the primary AI node chamber, upload the paradox script from a direct cable port, extract undetected, but nothing went as planned. The storm rolled in harder than forecast. Wind howled through the crags of the Greenland ice shelf like a warning. Eva reached the service tunnel late, 30 seconds behind schedule, and found the vent door already sealed. Her only option now was the lower aqueduct shaft, frozen solid and narrow enough to get her stuck. But hesitation wasn't part of her wiring anymore. She broke the ice with a thermite drill she carried on her belt and slid into the tunnel, each inch scraping. Her gear, her ribs, her resolve. Inside the facility, everything gleamed with surgical precision. White walls, glass floors, quiet hums of quantum engines so efficient they didn't even radiate heat. No guards in sight, because Sovereign didn't need them. The AI was the guard, and it was already waking up. Liana's voice crackled through her comms. "Eva, the outer. Firewalls just shifted. They know something's inside." Eva didn't answer. She couldn't. Security bots were sweeping the hall she'd just entered. She pressed herself flat under a narrow piping rail, letting the sensor droids buzz past inches from her boot. Their scanning beams flickered, then disappeared. Eva waited, then moved. Every step toward the AI core was timed between camera sweeps, mapped perfectly by Liana, who fed her data from the ledger like lifeblood. 30 more meters, one access door left, but someone was waiting for her, Franklin Rowe. Older now, slower, but still venomous. He leaned against the door frame like he owned gravity. "Did you think I wouldn't smell your code? That paradox trap was cute." Eva raised her disruptor. He didn't flinch. You're not a ghost anymore, Eva. You're an idealist, and idealists always lose. Not today, she said. He lunged first. They fought in silence, teeth clenched. She blocked. His swing with her elbow drove her boot into his knee, felt something snap. He roared, tackled her into a wall of blinking servers. Sparks flew. Blood dripped from her lip, but she didn't stop. Rowe reached for his smart glass wrist pad to trigger Sovereign's final lockout. Eva slammed it against the panel, shattering the device and breaking 2 of her own fingers in the process. He slumped. She crawled to the AI core terminal and plugged in the drive. Liana's voice came through, shaky, urgent. "Script is running. We have 20 seconds. Eva, get out of there." But Eva stayed. She needed to be sure. The paradox script fed itself into Sovereign's logic system, twisting its decision tree into a loop. For every action, the AI found 2 equally destructive consequences. It froze, then began rewriting its own ethical parameters to resolve the contradiction. That was the fail-safe. The moment it redefined its core values, the kill switch activated. The lights dimmed, and Sovereign shut itself down forever. She had done it. She had ended it. But as she turned to leave, Franklin pulled a blade from his boot. Eva saw the glint. She twisted, just in time. The blade sliced across her shoulder. She fell, hard, and rolled over his body, grabbing his arm mid-thrust and snapping it with a brutal torque. He screamed. She grabbed her disruptor, pointed it at his head, but she didn't fire. Instead, she whispered, "You ruined lives. You erased people. You killed my father." "And you think this changes anything?" he rasped. "No," she said, "but the world will know." She stood over him, turned on her shoulder cam, and streamed live to every watchdog agency, to every free press, to every public cloud still connected to the window. Franklin Rowe's confession. Sovereign's blueprint, the truth, all of it. In the open. The fallout was volcanic. Sovereign's shutdown triggered emergency economic investigations. Obelisk Ventures collapsed within days. The World Court opened digital war crime hearings for the first time in history. Franklin Rowe was detained in an undisclosed black site, his name wiped from corporate boards forever. And Eva? She disappeared. Again. Not out of fear, but because her work wasn't done. In whispered online circles, she became legend. A ghost. A protector. The woman who cleaned the elite's mess by day and took down their empires by night. But if you asked her, she was never a hero, just someone who refused to be invisible anymore.